So, good afternoon, all. My name is Valisa Turner Howard, and I'm the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion for the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. Thank you for joining us for our early February Real Talk, Call to Collective Action for Racial Equity Now. The REAL initiative is an outgrowth of the work CMBA has been doing for many years around increasing equity, inclusion, and diversity in the legal profession. Activities and initiatives have included our well-established diversity pipeline programs like the Stokes Scholars and Minority Clerkship Program. The ongoing work of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, including our benchmarking survey and racial equity toolkit, and of course, many will remember the Cleveland 2020 plan. As you can tell, the CMBA has been consistently pushing toward a more equitable, inclusive, and diverse profession. So it is no surprise that after the murder of George Floyd on national television, the Racial Equity and the Law initiative came into sharp focus. After hearing from our members in the wider Cleveland community, the CMBA enthusiastically accepted the challenge to be a force for positive, permanent change in the legal community and the justice system. The REAL initiative started with the launch of the 21-day Racial Equity Habit Building Challenge in the late summer of 2020. We continued with a myriad of real talks throughout 2020, including conversations about white allyship and the role of civil unrest in fomenting change, among others. Finally, all along, we've been inviting attorneys to lead our 4 working groups. And today is the day we will introduce the Cleveland legal community to these leaders and give them the space to discuss the mission and purpose of their respective work groups. I will first announce each work group and its leadership. Then each work group will give further introductions and discussion straight from the mouths of those leaders. So there are 4 groups. The first is Dismantling Systemic and Negotiated Racism, led by Kittoe-Krivosh and Ludgy, LaRochelle. The second is Continuing Criminal Justice Reform, led by Keim and Russell Ty. The third is Promoting and Growing White Allyship, led by Tera, Coleman and Dave Valent. And the fourth is Interrupting the Legal Profession's Systemic Inequities, and is led by Kelly Albin, Ed Blakemore, and Mark Young. So now I'll go back up to the top, and I'll start with Dismantling Systemic and Negotiated Racism. Kira and Ludgy, take it away.
Much, Valisa. So for the past 12 years of practicing law, I've spent the majority of that with the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office as an assistant prosecuting attorney. In the past, I've worked for the city of Garfield Heights and additionally the city of Canton Law Department, Starr County Family Court, as well as a law firm. So I have a diverse legal background. Additionally, I'm also heavily involved in nonprofit work, which kind of comes into play with this specific priority that Ludgy and I are co-leading. And so this topic is very close to my heart. Again, we are focusing our priority on dismantling systemic and negotiated racism. That is specifically at the local, the municipal level, state and federal levels. We're going to be reviewing any legislation or regulations that may unfairly impact people of color or place unequal burdens on certain communities. So with that being said, what we're looking for, we have 2 questions for those who are watching right now. And one is, are you involved? Are you involved already on a local level, on a state level or federal level, where you're already trying to tackle these kind of issues? Is there a committee that is going on within your city, within your community? Is there something that you're involved in, that you're passionate about, where you're looking at these types of issues? If so, please reach out to Ludgy and I, because this is something that we want to know about. One of our goals is to have on the CMBA website a informational site where you're able to go and see what local communities are doing, what impact they're making, what pending legislation they have, what legislation have they passed already, and have contacts, so that we have an ability to connect people from different areas and kind of tackle this issue together and see where everybody's at on it. So if you are already involved, we would love to have you and see what you're doing, and also have that information so we can post that on the CMBA website. Our second question is, are you interested in being involved? And if any of these topics at all interest you, or this one in particular, we would love for you to reach out and be a part of our work group. We have a date set already, which Ludgy is going to say shortly, but we would love to have that information for you and gain that information that you have and work together. So I don't know, Ludgy, if you want to add our specifics.
Yes, thanks, Kira. Hi, my name is Ludgy LaRochelle. Kira and I have been practicing for the same amount of time, so about 12 years. For me, it's always been in Cleveland, although I'm from the Detroit area originally. My practice specialty is transactional work. It's actually corporate work. I do M&A and commercial contracts. As of right now, I'm with Tucker Ellis. I'm a counsel there for the last 4 years, so it's been a great experience. I think, as Valisa stated and Kira also stated with the events of last summer involving, George Floyd, and even as far back as Trayvon Martin, I've always wanted to get involved in using my talents to push racial equity in our society, especially from a legal standpoint, because that's what has the most direct impact in my humble opinion. And so when this opportunity came up and, Lisa and I talked about it, I jumped at it. So I'm excited to work with Kira, who's really dynamic. I'm really excited to work with her on the legislative initiative. As Kira stated, we've set our initial meeting. It'll be Tuesday, February 23rd, a noon Zoom meeting. So that will go out to all of the interested members. And also, just to piggyback off what Kara was stating, if you are interested in our group, we love people from all talents, from all backgrounds. I would ask that if you do have connections to any local municipalities, the city, or state representatives, this might be the group for you, as we'll be discussing regulations, guidelines, and legislative agendas. So we're excited to get started. And hopefully those who are interested will join us next on Tuesday, February 23rd. Thanks.
Thank you, Kira and Ludgy. I appreciate you providing that information. The next working group that we'll hear from is the Continuing Criminal Justice Reform co-chairs.
Hello, everybody. My name's Chris Keim. I'm the managing partner at Frantz Ward. So you're probably asking, why is he on the Criminal Justice Reform subcommittee? Well, couple reasons. One, growing up, my mom always worked in social service. My dad worked for special ed. So social justice and those types of issues were always near and dear to my heart. But more importantly, as I graduated law school, as I now say in my former life, I was hired by Stephanie Tubbs Jones as an assistant Cuyahoga County prosecutor, and then stayed in the office as Bill Mason came in. And so for the first 6 years of my career, I was heavily involved in the criminal justice system. I won't tell you how many years that has been, but it is still my passion. I still identify myself as a former prosecutor, and more importantly, any stories I tell, no one cares about civil defense stories, so I still tell the stories from the criminal system. As further proof that that's near and dear to my heart, I was not, before this pandemic, someone who watched a lot of Netflix, but if you now look at my history, every single one these last 10 months or so have been some type of criminal documentary, criminal fictional mystery. I'm currently watching The Staircase, which I highly recommend. And so it's always been something that's tugged at me. And then, when I got to be in my role at the firm, we have really good leaders of our diversity and inclusion committee and our women's initiative. So that type of stuff has always interested me. And then obviously when the George Floyd situation happened, we all felt that tug individually and then on behalf of my firm to do something. And, writing our firm's statement about the George Floyd situation was really difficult, because you want to write something like Frantz Ward's going to end systemic racism. And then you realize we don't have that ability, right? And so we really put a lot of thought about it and said, what we can do is reach out to organizations and offer our time and money and resources to help them. And so when the call for action came for the CMBA individually, I thought, this is my time to help. So that's how we got here. That's how I got here onto this role. incorporating racial equity in the criminal justice system can take on so many different forms, right? There are so many things we can do. I mean, there's reducing racial disparity in incarceration and arrests. There's alternatives to incarceration for low-income people. There's pretrial release issues and bail and bond, and there's racial disparity of the race of the victim, right? I mean, oftentimes if the victim's white, there's increased scrutiny, there's increased punishment. So it can go so many different ways. And for me personally, in my role here at Frantz Ward and in everything I do, I'm a big fan of data. So I do think we need some type of database to collect the disparity issues in arrests and arraignment and pleas and sentencing. And so that is so far over, so broad that really we need your help as a committee. I promise you, for the people that know me or my partners who are here, I don't take an idea and ram it through. So if you're on this committee with Russ, who many years ago, Russ and I were on opposite sides, and I'm really looking forward to working with him. But you have to get buy-in and you have to get input. And so I promise you, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are groups out there doing some of the things that I've already mentioned that we can connect with. And I promise you, you'll have a say, you'll have input. And as a committee, we'll figure out the 2 or 3 goals that we can achieve. And so one other thing I wanted to point out in the call to arms is Judge John Russo called me yesterday. He's very excited to be on our subcommittee. He couldn't be part of this call today because he's at Veterans Court, which is a great alternative to incarceration. So he will be involved as well. He's very excited. And so I'm very excited. And honestly, for those that know Russ, he is such a great person. I'm really excited to be co-chair with him. And so please join us. We picked a date of Thursday, February 25th at noon. We'll send out the invitation. If you have any questions, just find me, call, send an email. I'll be happy to ask. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to Russ now and let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Russ Ty. It's very good to be part of this initiative. I'm grateful to connect with Chris as chairperson of this committee, and excited about doing so. Admittedly, I was just invited within the last few hours because our office had someone that had other commitments in different units, and my boss, Cullen Sweeney, asked that I participate, and this is right up my alley. I've always been involved with civil rights initiatives, and criminal justice reform is something that is long overdue, in my eyes at least. And we welcome you all to participate with us in our group. I'm going to be very brief, but I will just say by way of background, I come from, back when Chris was with Stephanie Tubbs Jones. She hired me as well, but I had already accepted a position in Lake County as a prosecutor out there. And that was something very challenging, very conservative group, but I loved it. I actually still have friends that I communicate with out there, former prosecutors, defense counsel. But I saw at a very early age in the 90s, the need for reform, the need for diversity, the need for a criminal justice system that really needs to change. And the very fact that I was out there myself, I felt that I was part of some of that change. Being African-American, the only African-American prosecutor out there at the time. So I really, and my career has really evolved and been around. After that, I was there 4 years or so, a little bit over 4 years. And after that, I went into private practice and, was married, had children, and stayed there for a significant amount of time doing general practice, but mainly criminal defense work. So yes, Chris and I were on the opposite sides at points in times, and I'm glad to be working with him. After that, after 16 plus years, I went back to the prosecutor's office here in Cuyahoga County for the last 4 years, working under Prosecutor O'Malley. That was a great experience as part of his executive team. And now I'm with the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office as the chief trial counsel. So I love being in this criminal justice system. They'll probably carry me out of this system at some point, but I really enjoy it. It's my passion. And reform is definitely my passion, and I'm trying to do our part in making that change occur. And I welcome working with all the groups, the subcommittees, and working especially with Chris and trying to see what we can accomplish here in a short period of time. And hopefully this is something that will evolve and we can continue to have initiatives like this over the years to help improve our system. So that's all I have to say right now. I hope that you all will be interested in signing up, working with us in one or two subcommittee groups, and we welcome you and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russ and Chris. We'll move on to our third group, which is promoting and growing white allyship.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor to be part of this group and this presentation today. Tera Coleman is our co-chair. She's been very active. Her and I have been doing our best to get this group kicked off, and she sends her regards. She had something come up at work and she's sorry she can't make it today, but I'm sure you'll see if you're able to join our group, she's going to be a big part of this. So white allyship, our official mission is to promote and grow white allyship by convening workshops and education and toolkits to different businesses, law firms throughout our community to help those organizations have better practices and better culture to affirmatively eliminate racism in our enterprises and throughout our country. And obviously that's a lofty goal. But to explain where that comes from, I, like so many of you, and Chris Keim said it very well a moment ago, over the last year, the events have really inspired a significant movement that we have to take advantage of. And I was saying to myself, what more can I personally do to help bring about change? And I'm fortunate to work for a wonderful organization at the Cleveland Clinic that has a tremendous culture and has tremendous leaders in diversity and inclusion. And I know many of you are as well, to be fortunate enough to work for wonderful places where this is a priority. And what we want to do through our white allyship group is to build on that, to emphasize that, to create leaders within each of your own places of work, white allies or champions who are in favor of proactively ending racism and ending barriers for people to have opportunities. So what we're looking for in our group is anyone who's passionate about these issues. And of course, I saw in the chat box, there might be many groups that appeal to you. And so please sign up for something to get involved. Your help is needed. But in our group, we're looking for individuals who are interested in learning with us on this journey and taking what we learn back to our places of employment to build on what are hopefully great practices already, but to continue to improve this mission of ending racism. And so we're delighted to have anyone with ideas, with passion, with time. And I'm so encouraged by the number of people that have joined this group already. So our first meeting is February 26th. It's at 2 p.m. It'll be a Zoom meeting. Again, I'm Dave Valent, and I will send my email here in the chat box. Tera Coleman's our other co-leader, and we're looking for more leaders. We're very grateful to have your help.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. And finally, we have interrupting the legal profession's systemic inequities.
Yes, folks, certainly glad everybody could join. My name's Ed Blakemore. I work for Rockwell Automation as the Chief Litigation Officer. And so I'm pleased to be supported by Kelly Albin and by Mark Young on this subcommittee. So we, at the end of the day, what this subcommittee is trying to accomplish is, I think, twofold. One is we want to help people understand the characteristics of the people who are actually doing their legal work. So we're hopeful that some of our corporate counsel colleagues want to join into this group because we know people are at different spectrums of understanding that, but candidly, this group is designed to help people come up with the strategies necessary to ensure that the people who are doing their legal work mirror their customers, mirror their clients, mirror their coworkers. And so we're really focused on that. And then as well, we're also want to also help people in addition to that kind of, and then once we understand that, to help them plot the path forward. So part of our initiative is going to be, again, just helping you understand your spend, who's doing the work, in what capacities and what amounts, and then as well helping you with the path forward there are some companies who have very aggressive diversity goals that are already in place and have been in place year over year and are making great change. There are other companies that are just at the very beginning and are just starting to understand that they need to be reviewing this. The other, I think, kind of key stakeholder that would be really helpful to us is the firms, the local law firms that have diverse folks working for them. Because candidly, we're in a position where we want to, again, ensure that folks are getting fair enough opportunities for Cleveland's legal work, and for candidly, many of our companies have work far outside of the Cleveland area. My company rarely gets sued in Ohio, but we do get sued in a lot of other jurisdictions. So the local firms who want to get involved and kind of partner with some of these corporate companies, we invite you as well, because we think it'd be a great partnership. So that's all I want to say for the moment, but I certainly want to provide Mark Young or Kelly Albin an opportunity to chime in as well.
Thank you so much, Ed. I'm so fortunate to have two wonderful co-chairs, Ed and Mark, in helping with this initiative. And just a little bit about myself, I work at Sherwin-Williams. I've been here for about 7 years. And like so many on this call, I've been supportive and active in diversity, inclusion, and equity issues over the years, but really is over the past year, the attention, the momentum, really educating myself and being real with myself even more about how intentional I am about racial equity issues and what I'm doing to help move things forward. This just seemed like an excellent way to get involved, and we're very hopeful that folks on this call, other folks in the community will join our group as well as some of these others to make meaningful change in the Cleveland community and in the legal profession in general.
Yeah, thank you for all being here. It's great to see so many familiar faces. Like Kelly said, I'm excited to work with both Ed and Kelly. We've had several meetings already to chart our path forward. A little bit about me, I'm a shareholder at Retzel and Andrus. You can't see a lot of the Browns paraphernalia or Indians paraphernalia, but lifelong Clevelander, walked in with my Cavs hat and my Browns jacket underneath my 12 jacket today. But I have been involved tremendously. I think really the key is access. And throughout my nearly 20 years of practicing law, that's been very sensitive to me. I'm a litigator, and I see who's in court for different entities and work diligently to try and advance that over the years, from being recently named the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee at my firm throughout our footprint, as well as working with the Minority Clerkship Program for the last 7 to 8 years. I think access is key. And what Ed and Kelly and I are trying to do is kind of create a uniform way to build a program that's sustainable. So it's not just the access, it's everything that goes along forward, as Ed mentioned. So very excited. We welcome you to join our committee. We look forward to having you. Thank you.
And just one final point, our first meeting is going to be on February 23rd at 9 a.m. So if you're interested, certainly join us, and, don't hesitate. We've got everybody's contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, comments, concerns, but certainly look forward to working with this team.
Thank you so much, all of our work group co-chairs, for sharing your background, your passion, and information about what your groups will be doing. We have a couple of questions, and if there are any other questions from folks in the audience, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. I will pick them up. But the first is, the CMBA has long been involved in equity and diversity related efforts. Too often the same group of people show up for the programs and events. How do you envision engaging with different members of our legal community? And any of the co-chairs can pipe up on this.
Do you mind if I pipe up into this one?
Sure. Go ahead, Kira.
So one of the things that I don't think I mentioned was this isn't just limited to attorneys. The work that we're all doing within our committees is not just CMBA member attorneys. This is open to all attorneys and all non-attorneys. So our hope is, and I believe that this group of leaders is a very dynamic and incredible group, and I feel also newer leaders that are emerging. I think that capped along with the community engagement that we hope to have and that I've already been reaching out and seeing that we've had will make things transformative. I really believe that just, it doesn't just have to be attorneys doing this work. Again, I think Ed may have mentioned it, there are people doing this work. And we know that, but we're willing to collaborate. And I also think part of this mission is bringing people together to work together because there's that strength in numbers. So having that strength within not only community members, nonprofit organizations, volunteers, merged with leaders within the CMBA attorney community, I think that will be a hard force to stop.
Valisa, from my perspective, I think Ed and I and Kelly and I have talked about expanding the use of the term legal services to look at anything that tangentially touches that. So if you use appraisers, IT, court reporters, translators. So what we envision is kind of building a platform that looks, I think Ed used the term, all of your diverse legal spend. And that could be on a variety of aspects, not so much solely focused on a legal practitioner. So as Kira said, we're trying to take an expansive approach, so it's all encompassing as best we can.
So, and this next question kind of digs a little deeper, and I don't know if any of you have any specifics, but they ask, what is the role of members of the general community, people who may or may not be a member of the CMBA? Will your groups be partnering with other organizations, or is this going to be a sort of an in-house thing? It sounds like you're trying to be more expansive and partner with other folks. I don't know if any of your groups have thought about that yet, if you have any specifics.
Yeah, Lisa, this is Chris. Yeah, I had already talked to Judge Russo yesterday, like I said, John Russo called, very excited. And that's the thing we realized, like, especially in the criminal justice, there are groups doing this already. And if we think we're just going to ignore all their hard work and what they've done, we won't be successful. So we know one of the things we're first going to do is figure out who are our other, the stakeholders, the people we want to collaborate with. And so otherwise nothing gets done. And I can tell you, and I guarantee everyone on this, on these co-chairs have been on a lot of committees over their lifetime, and nothing is worse than being on a committee that doesn't do anything. So if you don't collaborate and you don't put in the hard work, nothing will happen. So I promise you, our group, and I know the other ones, won't let that happen.
Excellent. So we have another question. Last week we were all, I'm sure, ogling the newspaper when it came out that so many Northern District of Ohio, the folks on the federal court are taking senior status. So the Northern District of Ohio will soon be selecting 3 new federal judges and at least 1 new federal magistrate judge based in Akron. Will these groups play any role in advocating for diversity in those future hires? Anybody want to take that question? Or have you thought about it? Maybe that's not something that's been thought about. Okay.
I'll try and jump in. Yeah, that's a tough question, right? Because that's going to go through basically the president. So that's going to be a difficult thing probably for us to have a say in. But it is a good question. It's something. It's probably more posted. It's probably more a CMBA question than it is for these subcommittees. But I think that's something we will all we can talk to Becky McMahon and Joe Gross and see what the role the CMBA can play, if any, in that.
Okay.
I think if I could just chime in,
Sure.
I think it would be an excellent opportunity, personally, that if we could meet with the leadership of the Bar Association and at least float the idea out there of working, because I believe it was said a little earlier that we need to partner with organizations and entities that's already involved in this. I believe Chris said it best, that they've already done a lot of the legwork and hard work, up to this point, and I'm sure would be willing to help. But as part of that effort, I do think that we need to look at more broadly diversifying every area. And this is a critical time in our history right now, and especially important appointments, not just for district court judge, but for potentially other areas that I'm sure we all know that our leadership will have some say-so in. And I think that if our voices are silent on that, that we would be missing a great opportunity.
Thanks, Russ. I just want to note, Subodh Chandra is making some good points about how the federal appointments process works. I think that he's been involved in some of the panels before, but he did note that for judges, diversity includes professional diversity. The new administration is calling for public interest lawyers, civil rights lawyers, and public defenders to apply. Senator Brown will lead the choice for the U.S. District Court vacancies. The U.S. Magistrate Judge will be selected by the District Court after 5 candidates are advanced by a screening committee appointed by the court. The deadline for applications is March 3rd. See the federal court's website. And Senator Brown works with Senator Portman. So thank you for that information, Subodh. Appreciate it. Not everyone is sort of clear on how federal appointments work. Another question, following up on Chris's comments a little while ago, is about collaborating with courts. Some of the recommendations or actions these groups take on will likely involve critiques of existing or past practices. Do you worry about challenging the status quo? And I think that's a question for each group, because, as a work group in the REAL initiative, you're going to be coming up with ideas, thoughts, practices, initiatives that have not been done before, or, maybe there's been pushback before. What are your thoughts on worrying about challenging the status quo or making some people uncomfortable or feel awkward?
And I'll just chime in briefly. This is Ed Blakemore again. I think, at the end of the day, the world's changing. And, I'm somebody who kind of, was a sociology major a million years ago. And, we're taught to study trends. And a lot of trends are changing. And so it's, law firms have had to change. Corporate counsel environments have had to change. Everybody's had to be more nimble, more agile. And candidly, there's a war for talent out there. So when I'm hiring lawyers, I'm looking for the best lawyers I can find. And I certainly want them to make sure, I certainly want them to reflect the people who buy our products and who, to the extent that the status quo historically for, if you went back 20, 30 years in Cleveland, the in-house community was incredibly white male. And that's slowly really started to meaningfully change. Some of those colleagues are on right now, and they can speak to that even better than me. So I'm not concerned about that. I think, candidly, Cleveland's a place where we can really be a legal center of excellence as it relates to diversity and inclusion initiatives if we choose to be. And so I think many of the efforts that we're going through here are going to collaborate with some folks that we haven't collaborated with, are going to bring in some stakeholders who haven't had a voice before, and is going to provide some leadership to some people who clearly want some leadership. And so I think all those things combined will result in some meaningful change. It's just an issue of articulating that path and helping people understand how they can help to implement it. So I think just these 12 people on this call are committed, and they all have great stakeholder groups, great friends, great relationships, and all the other 50 or so people who are attending as well, I think, are committed. And so it's just an issue of us getting a clearly articulated strategy and moving forward on it in a very comprehensive way. And so that's what we're going to do. And then we're just looking for other people to join us, because we can't do it alone. But at the end of the day, I don't think we should feel constrained by status quo. Never felt that way in my entire life. So let's just, we're ready to get to work. So if you're ready to get to work, then sign up.
And if I could just add, thanks, Ed, that was a great summation. I just wanted to add, I've been reading John Lewis's book, Good Trouble, and I think it embodies what we're trying to do here. I mean, you're going to break a couple eggs and make people uncomfortable with these conversations, but think about the other side of the equation. Those that have been, marginalized have been uncomfortable for so many years. And so I'm okay with that personally. I also wanted to note an observation is that a lot of the conversation, even in this meeting, seems to revolve around litigation and criminal reform. And I want, the audience and everybody to realize that, racial equity comes in all forms and fashion. My experience is from a transactional standpoint. So I look at it from business access and capital access and things of that nature. I mean, we just had a study that came out that showed that, out of the $1 billion that were provided for construction contracts in the county, less than 5% went to minorities and women, and I think less than 1% went to minorities. So, and the county has laws on its books, yet the execution of it is abysmal. So there are opportunities here across the board to get involved, and we have to expand our, sort of viewpoints on, what constitutes racial equity with regards to our mission here.
So did anyone else want to answer that? No? Okay, well, as a follow-up on Ed's comments, where do the panelists see our community has been seeing progress in terms of racial equity within the legal community? Where have you seen progress that we can maybe follow up on or make better already?
I'll start off, I guess, since they're piggybacking off of my comments. So I think one area is the fact that, and as somebody who's kind of tracked this over time, we've got roughly about 50 or so Black lawyers who happen to be at prominent companies here in Cleveland. When I started tracking that 15 or so years ago, the number was more like about 10 or 12. So you've seen some exponential growth there, and people who actually make decisions for, candidly, who call law firms and say, I want to hire you. So you've got more diversity there. Needs to be more, but that's certainly been a significant improvement year over year. We've also seen over time, we've seen some movement on the number of Black partners and associates here locally. So it needs to be a much bigger number, by the way, but we've been adding roughly about 1 or 2 per year. And so that number is making some progress. And so I think, and we have to keep in mind and kind of level set, as Lyndon Johnson said many years ago, you can't take the chains off of people and expect them to run the race that other people have been running for 400 years. It's just not a fair thing to expect. And so really only allowed access for some people since the late 60s, early 70s. And so it's kind of second generation for a lot of folks. And so I would say those are 2 buckets where we've seen some progress that I think is somewhat meaningful, but there's more work to be done. And certainly we want to empower people to get, again, equal access, as some of my colleagues have said, but we want to empower people so that there's equal opportunity to, because there's enough work, believe me, with all the different companies all throughout Cleveland and all around, there's enough work for everybody. It's just an issue of making sure that folks have an equal opportunity to bid and be considered for that work. And so that's the mission in some part of at least our subcommittee.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Another question is, for the in-house attorneys, the legal community often hears from law firms. Let's see, behavior policy. Hear from law firms that clients ask for certain things. They want, certain attorneys on certain things, or however they want things to be staffed. In 2021, is racial equity a priority for companies when making decisions about which firms or lawyers to hire?
Some of my other in-house colleagues, I've talked enough for a moment.
Who else do we have on here?
Kelly or Kelly.
I'll chime in for a minute. I think that's a good question. I think it speaks to the education and awareness that we all have to have when we want to, and Ed touched on it perfectly in his example of tracking the numbers of growth and diversity among in-house counsel. Same thing within law firms is we just have to, one of the goals of our group is to take issues like that and to learn about them and to analyze them and to say, where can we do a better job as a community in ensuring equality and opportunity? And so if it's in hiring, what does that look like? What are some tools? How, do we start calling different law firms who are better at issues of diversity? Do we call upon hiring people from a more diverse pool of colleges, and just brainstorming those ideas? And trust me, there's a lot of literature that we're trying to digest right now around these issues to educate ourselves, so that we can then share that education and those tools with places of employment who are really looking for this change. To go back to one of those other questions, the feedback we have from this group here today, and the feedback we've received for the last month when we're revving up to do this, is that people are looking for ways to improve. They're looking for ways to change. And we've got to just be, as our white ally group, we've got to be a positive force in that change, and make sure that we're taking steps all along the way. So we're open to ideas in other areas where we can have those incremental improvements.
Yes, and to add to that, and to add what Ed has been saying as well, is our group has already been talking about how there are plenty of folks within legal departments and companies and within firms who have been talking about these issues for years and years and have made progress and have been intentional. There's other folks that are just at the beginning, and it's part of what our group is looking at is what tools can we provide to different folks depending on where they're starting at. We don't want to stifle like really more advanced progress, but we also don't want to scare folks away. And we want to help start some of those conversations so we can bring attention to some of these issues. So it's just looking at kind of things from a broader scale, and like Dave hit on, not just outside counsel spend, and I think Ed alluded to this as well, just in hiring practices, looking at the pool of applicants that you're choosing from, building strategic partnerships with, for law students, it can be with HBCUs, it can be with specific minority student groups. So just looking at things from a couple different angles.
Yeah, I'm not on that group, and those three said it so well, so I hate to jump in, but as a managing partner, the progress is there. It went from a conversation about the numbers to insisting, and now you really see like the companies that are represented by that group that just spoke, they walk the walk. And so it's forcing law firms to change, right? And so I'll also put in a plug for my good friend Rose Feeney, and the CMBA. They sent out to all law firms a toolkit to help with improving your D&I and equity. So that toolkit has so many good suggestions. It's a blueprint we incorporated, so we have best practices, and we have a lot of good things, but when they're in writing and measured, it's much better. So the companies that just spoke have done such a great job of leading this change that there has been a lot of good stuff in the civil realm.
I'll just chime in just very briefly and just say that, there are a variety of companies. The direct answer to the person's question, there are a variety of companies measuring a variety of different things. And so, with I think good intent. And so we're trying to assist the people who are not measuring anything to help them kind of measure and get on board. And then as well, help the people who are already measuring and implementing a variety of different objectives, initiatives, goals, performance measures to refine that practice as well. So it's a twofold process to kind of bring everybody under the tent.
So I just want to follow up on what Chris mentioned, and that's the racial equity, diversity, and inclusion toolkit. Did have a question about, what is it? Where can we find it? It is on the CMBA website. It is available to members of the CMBA. And what it is a compilation, a comprehensive toolkit that's intended to help law firms, corporations, courts, legal nonprofits make real efforts in uplifting and recognizing the work of women and minority legal professions. The collection includes links, guides, checklists, best practice examples, other resources. It is very, very comprehensive. The lead on this was our president-elect, Rose Feeney, and she worked with a dynamic group of attorneys to put this toolkit together. It's quite comprehensive. There are templates, there are all sorts of things. Please look at this toolkit. It's on the CMBA website. You have to log in as a member, and then you'll be able to find it. But it's an excellent source of information. And if you're trying to figure out where to start, this is your start. This is the on-ramp for figuring out what your D&I initiatives or program might look like. And so I now want to just ask, I don't see any more questions. Oh, wait, hold on. There may be some in the chat. Maybe not. No, so I think we are done with questions. So the last thing that I want to do, oh, I'm sorry, one more question. And that is, are the work groups looking for particular kinds of volunteers? And then we'll do the wrap up.
I know with our work group, we're looking for anyone and anyone, as long as you're motivated and passionate about the topic that we're doing as a priority. You know, we would love to have you.
Yeah, it sounds like we're looking for people who want to work, who want to get things done, who want to move the needle. So before we wrap up, I'm going to give each group of co-chairs a final word, and that final word should include the date and time of your meeting. And then I'm going to have Jessica Payne give some housekeeping information about how do you volunteer, where do you volunteer, you know, what's the website, all that kind of stuff. And then I will wrap up. So we'll start with Ludgy and Kira.
Just as a final word, again, we want to thank you all for watching and for listening to what our initiatives are and what our focus is hoped to be. We hope that you join any or all of these committees. We really are passionate about the work that we're doing and very excited to work together. I think I also have to thank the CMBA staff. They are an incredible group of people, and anything that we want to have done, they basically say yes to and make it happen. So I think that's one of the benefits of having CMBA be one of the leader organizations in trying to bring this all together. I would just ask other people to also be mindful that this really is a collaborative effort, that we realize that this work is being done in some factions by other groups, by other organizations, by churches or individual volunteers. But we hope to all work together. Attorneys are looked as leaders within the community, and we hope to take this to the next level with what we're doing. So we definitely encourage you to join any or all of these committees and really look forward to working with you. And I'll definitely let Ludgy give our date and time, because he keeps me on task with those kind of specifics.
So thanks, Kara. Our initial meeting is Tuesday, February 23rd at noon. It'll be a Zoom meeting, so we'll send out a Zoom invite here this week. So again, Kira summarized that perfectly. If you are able and willing to work, we are really, our goal is to provide actionable items and to really move the needle here. So, and that's just going to take boots on the ground. I mean, there's no other way to say it. So, I look forward to, working with all of you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the groups, organically grow, and produce results, in Cleveland and the greater Northeast Ohio area.
Thank you. Russ and Chris.
So yeah, I will say, first of all, I'm kind of happy I'm a co-chair of one of these groups, because I don't know which one I would pick. They're all so good. So that way I don't have to make that decision. So the two things I'll say is, one, I was at a meeting many years ago with a really good leader in town, and she said, leaders show up. And so if you're on this call, you're already tugged a little bit to do something. So please show up, pick one of these groups, and help. And if you're on our subcommittee, I assure you, you will have a voice in what we do, you'll have a say in what we do, and we will reach out and be collaborative to everybody. So please, our date is Thursday, February 25th at noon. And Russ, you have anything to add?
Only thing I would add is we're open arms here. I think every group, every committee needs your help. And no matter how small or big your contribution is, we need you. You know, you can always, sometimes it's really just a thought that evolves into action. And so the fact that you're here, the fact that you're interested in this, and it's very dear to my heart, you know, this criminal justice reform. I'm looking forward to learning from volunteers, learning from our community, and learning from our legal community as well. So please join a group, whether it's this one or any other groups or multiple groups. Just get involved. That's where it starts. It's that first step. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ and Chris. How about Dave?
Yeah, thank you. Well said by my colleagues there. This really is a call to action. I think all of us on this call would agree that there really couldn't be a more important issue for us to work on in our professional careers than coming together for this. And we have the resources and we have the voice, and we've got to take advantage of that. Our group is to sum it up again, we are looking to learn together, to educate ourselves and each other. But more than that, more than just a lunch or a seminar, we want to take what we learn and move those best practices and transform cultures at our own places of work to have better diversity, better inclusion, and more equity. And that's what we're trying to do. So we're looking for people that will help in any capacity, that have any amount of time or interest. And on top of that, we're looking for people that want to help create a more improved culture of diversity, inclusion, and equity within their own workplaces. And we're grateful for anyone that wants to help join us on February 26th at 2 p.m. as a starting point. And if you can help any other way, just reach out to us. We're grateful for it. Thank you.
And finally, Kelly, Ed, and Mark.
I'll just start off and say, you know, you all know what we're attempting to accomplish here. If you're interested in supporting this initiative, join, participate, get involved. It's real simple. You know, we look forward to your participation, but we've got a lot of great ideas. And we're looking forward to really working with a lot of great people to implement some really meaningful change here in Cleveland. So Kelly, Mark, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add.
I would just say I'd give a lot of credit to Becky and Jessica and all the dynamic folks over at the CMBA, you know, for being the Jerry Reinsdorf or Phil Jackson, putting together several all-star groups here. I think, as you can tell, everyone's dynamic and passionate, and above all, everybody's approachable. So I really encourage you to reach out to anyone you see here, any of the folks that couldn't be here that you might recognize their names, and just get involved.
What was your date again, Kelly?
February 23rd at 9.
Okay.
Is that right, Ed?
Yes.
Perfect.
Please join us. There's all experience levels. Happy to get folks' insight to help make some meaningful change.
Thank you, guys. Jessica, can you give us some housekeeping information? How do we get involved? Where do we go?
My pleasure. So, hi, everyone. I know everybody's gotten a lot of emails from me, but I just wanted to say hello personally. I'm Jessica Payne. I am the Director of Community Programs at the bar. I'm also the staff liaison for the Inclusion and Diversity Committee. And with all the wonderful things that you guys have been saying, I don't really have a lot to add. You guys make our job so easy. I would just echo again, if you have any inclination to get involved, even if you don't think, you know, necessarily it's leaping out at you that, yes, my skills can do this amazing thing. You're going to be a huge part of this, and we've got space for everybody. So right now in the chat, I'm putting my email address just in case you don't have it. So that's the first line. If you have questions, any other information that we can get for you, that's also where a lot of this information is going to be coming from. So you heard all of our co-chairs give their dates for our meetings later in February, but as long as you are signed up for a committee, a work group, we've got your information as well, and we'll be emailing you with the Zoom links, reminders of the meeting dates, and just keeping you in the loop that way. So hopefully you wrote that date down and can reserve that, but look for a Zoom link from us very soon. If I may, I'm going to screen share really briefly about our website, just so you can find the various things that we've been talking about. It's really easy to find, hopefully, but just in case, I want to make sure that everybody can see. So if you'll pardon me for a moment as I get this. Okay, does that look like that's showing up for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So the first thing I'm going to see, this is just the main page of our website for the bar. If you see this here, racial equity in the law, we've got this on the main page. It's really easy. If you just click on that, that takes you to the home site for our racial equity in the law page, our real page. So we've got this message from Elisa here. We've got a further description of each of our priority work groups that we've got right here on the right. So in case you need to go back and refamiliarize yourself with just sort of that statement of our general mission, it's right there. Immediately underneath is that link. If you click on that, that takes you to a SurveyMonkey link. If you have not already signed up for a committee, I'm sorry, I keep saying committee, for a work group, go ahead and click where it says click here to sign up for the work group, and that'll have you answer just a few brief questions and get us your information. If you're not sure whether you have, shoot me an email. I'll double check for you and we'll get you set up if that's anything that you're not sure about. The other thing I'm going to point out is if you go up to our top and find our diversity page, you go to legal professionals, diversity inclusion initiatives, you go here. This is where you're going to find more information about our toolkit. So we've got information about it here. This very first thing you see on that page. And then you see down here where it's bold and linked, we've got our toolkit. And as was mentioned before, this is something that's open to CMBA members. So do please make sure that you're signed in to the website in order to view it. And again, any questions, I'm always happy to help, but we will be in touch again really soon with more information for the Zoom, and please don't be shy. I can't thank you guys enough. I can't thank our co-chairs and our leaders enough for the amazing work that you've done so far, and we look forward sincerely to getting some real changes and real work done.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that information, Jessica. So thank you all for joining us for this Real Talk. Before you go, I just need to put in a last pitch for our upcoming Black History Month Real Talk. It's on February 24th, 12 to 1. It's called the Black Lawyers 2021 Call to Action, Get in the Way. The D&I Committee, the Black Law Student Associations from Case and Cleveland Marshall, and the Norman S. Minor Bar Association are co-hosting a virtual panel discussion about the PBS documentary on the late U.S. Congressman John Lewis, the importance and value of getting in the way, and the Black lawyer's responsibility to get into good trouble. So basically, you'll watch the documentary. It's free on PBS. And then you'll be prepared to join us and chat for an hour about the documentary and what it means and what the value is and how we should be getting in the way. There is CLE credit available, but you don't have to get CLE if that's not what you're looking for. You can just come and join us. So again, that's on February 24th, 12 to 1. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.